Hi, I'm Cal Anderson, and my guest today,
Judy Kennedy.
you might recognize Judy as our former mayor. She's been busy the last few weeks. She's going to tell you what she's been doing since Tom McGee took over. But she's here to just kind of hang out with us today and talk about some issues and a little private stuff too.
Well, Calvin texted me at 5:30 in the morning a couple of days ago and told me that he needed me on the set because his guest had canceled, and it sounded like a good time to resurface. So I said, sure, why not? And here I am.
Well, thank you for that, and kind of give us a coup at LCTV, because this is the first official appearance of former Mayor Kennedy, and we want to thank you for your 8 years.
Well, my pleasure.
In particular, what you did for Lynn Community TV, because at a very, what we call, delicate transition time, Mayor Kennedy was at the helm, and, well, we're very happy with the new digs, the new company, and all that. Enough said.
It looks beautiful over here, and we kept the core talent behind the cameras, which was very important to me. And I think we put in a board that had, I think I added it up, it was about 140 years combined experience on dealing with nonprofit boards and committees. So I figured that LCTV would be in good hands, and it looks like they certainly have done a great job with the new studios.
Well, thanks for your compliments, because you kind of know. You remember how we were before. We were working out of one room at City Hall temporarily, but look where we've come now.
For about a year, but those things happen. You know, as a homeowner, that you start out in that little studio apartment with 2 roommates, and sooner or later you're able to acquire the more spacious digs, and you can live your life. And LCTV had those growing pains, and look where they are now. This is absolutely gorgeous.
Well, now that you're not mayor, and you're not city councilor at large, and you're not school committee person, how does Judy Kennedy spend her time in Lynn?
Well, Judy Kennedy is catching up on some of the projects around the house that have been half started or put aside or just neglected for decades in part, but certainly over the last 8 years there hasn't been a lot of free time to do things. So I'm building a little shelf. This is my first project. I never took wood shop or anything in school, and over the years I've collected all these little bottles from various hotels where I've stayed, and I've always wanted to put them into some kind of a shadow box. So I looked online, and I really didn't see anything that was suitable, or if it was suitable, it cost like $150, which sounded kind of too expensive for what I was looking for. So I went online and I found this do-it-yourself thing for nail polish. And I thought, well, nail polish is about the same size as hotel shampoos. So I have all the pieces of wood down in my cellar. I have all of the various wood screws that I need and so forth. I even have the paint that I'm going to need to match my bathroom wall when I put it up. And I probably bought those 3 years ago, and I haven't had time to get to it. But now I have time to build my shelf.
It's timed nicely with, like, a lot of us do our winter projects this time of year too. It's called the hibernation season. I know you still like, one of the particular things we share is the music group N-Train. And you got any plans to see them anywhere? They travel the country, they have their tours, but you going to plug in anywhere? I
haven't seen N-Train in, oh my God, I was probably in my 20s the last time I saw N-Train, but I did dig up an old CD for a friend of mine, and it's called DIY Mass Ave, and it's all the music, local music, Willie Loco Alexander, and the Neighborhoods, and who else is on there? Classic Ruins, The Liars, The Atlantics, and I played it the other day to make sure it was still functional, and I felt 30 years younger just listening to it. I am going to be seeing local music locally, although not local music. Gene Simmons is coming to the Lynn Auditorium February 16th, and I will be in attendance.
Great.
One of my teenage heroes,
Great.
Gene Simmons.
Always letting us know what's happening in culture coming up. we got to talk about a few things plucked from the headlines, and I sort of have one that I know is of interest to you, Mayor Kennedy.
The residency question.
Now, in my conversations with you in the past, you've always expressed, you've lamented that you are limited in your search. You can't put out a true global search for talent if the residency requirement is in there. Now, this was, I understand, a voter-mandated residency. It's just before I moved to town, I think. Now, how do we overcome that? Does it take another ballot question, and how do you feel about that?
It's part of the charter. So we would have to do an override of that charter provision,
I have the charter right
which
here.
would be a popular vote. Yeah. However, and for decades, ever since way back when I was a councilor at large, I was the one voice who voted against enforcing the residency requirement. I just always felt as though it didn't allow the city to truly screen all of the best candidates for a job. I thought it gave Lynn a little bit of an image problem. I mean, if you're going to work here, you must stay here, because otherwise you wouldn't want to stay here. And I felt like that really was a negative for the city.
It's a little provincial,
and it's terribly provincial. And I also felt it was a slap in the face to some of the employees, saying you can't do a good enough job if you don't live here, because you won't care enough about the job that you're doing. And for all of those reasons, I have always opposed residency.
How does a charter line item or element be changed?
It has to be put to a vote.
Okay.
And I believe it then has to be approved at the
Where would
state
that start?
level.
With the city council, or with what's the mechanism
I think
for that?
it could either be done by a voter referendum, or it could be started with the city council.
Voter
I'm not,
referendum, okay. So
not
that
positive about that.
Okay. We got a couple of minutes left.
Can I just say
Yep,
that I
sure,
was
finish
able
that
to remove or modify the residency requirement for the police and fire, because there is a law in Massachusetts that collective bargaining agreements for public safety officials can override local charters. So now we have a limited 10-year residency for police and fire. When they start out, they must live here for 10 years. After that, they have to move within so many miles of the city in order to be readily accessible in the event of a big emergency.
In Thursday's paper, there's an artist rendering of what's envisioned for Suffolk Downs. Now, doesn't this look a little bit like the diamond in the rough known as our waterfront down past the General Edwards Bridge area?
It does.
It's a little bit larger acreage, but do you see any parallels here? Or is this going to actually preempt us from getting the same people who might be investing there to invest in Lynn?
Well, that is one contiguous parcel of land, privately owned by a group of investors. So it is a little different. You can't draw an exact parallel. We have National Grid is one of the very large landowners down there, and their parcels are non-contiguous, so they have to, some are registered land, some are recorded land, and my understanding is they're in the process of untangling all of that so they can package their properties a little bit more readily, which is going to make their parcels of land a little more easy to develop.
All right. You know, we're talked about a few things, talked about what's going on with Judy and our city for the rest of the winter and the future. We got to bring this show home.
I can't believe that time went by so quickly.
Well, it does.
So do you need me to sign off, Calvin?
Yes.
Okay.
And thank you for being here, former Mayor Judy Kennedy.
My pleasure. And don't wake me up at 5:30 ever again. And
I texted her. She left the volume up just for...
I sleep with my phone on still. I can't help it.
Yeah, well, somebody else is going to need those emergency calls
You
now,
just
Your Honor.
never know. So until next time, in every way and every day, keep loving Lynn.